There was a sense of disbelief around Ibrox and far beyond it after what unfolded against Hearts, because this was meant to be the afternoon where momentum finally shifted. Instead, Rangers Football Club walked away with another defeat that felt heavier than the scoreline, not just because it ended 2-1, but because of how the match slipped away and how it was later described. Supporters watched a team that looked hesitant, vulnerable at key moments, and far too easy to hurt, especially when the pressure rose. The frustration did not stop at the final whistle. It only intensified once the post-match reaction began to circulate, and the gap between what fans saw and what they were told became impossible to ignore. The match itself had promised something different early on. Rangers began with purpose, trying to impose themselves and move the ball quickly, and there was a brief feeling that the game was there to be controlled. An early set-piece moment even hinted at a breakthrough, but it came to nothing, and that was the first warning sign. From there, the familiar issues crept back in: possession without authority, risky decisions in their own half, and a lack of composure when it mattered most. Hearts did not need sustained dominance to take control of the contest. They simply waited for mistakes and punished them with ruthless efficiency. Both goals conceded told the same story. One lapse turned into another, and suddenly a manageable situation became a mountain to climb. Losing concentration at a corner, failing to deal with second balls, allowing momentum to swing entirely in the opposition's favor. These moments have become far too common. By the time Rangers reached the interval 2 goals behind, the mood was already sour, and many supporters feared exactly what followed. The response lacked clarity, the structure looked stretched, and every attempt to push forward left space waiting to be exploited. Rangers did pull 1 goal back, and there was effort in the second half, but effort alone does not win matches at this level. Hearts were comfortable sitting deeper, absorbing pressure, and breaking with pace whenever the opportunity arose. Rangers passed and probed, but too often it felt rushed or forced, as if belief was draining with every misplaced touch. The final whistle arrived with little sense of injustice, just resignation, and that alone says everything about where things stand right now. What truly ignited anger among the support, though, was not just the defeat, but the description of the performance afterwards. To hear it characterized as fantastic felt like a slap in the face to those who had just endured another damaging result. Fans are not asking for perfection, but they do expect honesty. When the assessment from the touchline does not match what is unfolding on the pitch, trust erodes very quickly. The idea that Rangers were excellent until the first goal ignores the deeper issue, because strong teams do not collapse the moment something goes against them. There is also growing concern about the repeated references to progress that never seems to fully materialize. Talking about steps forward and sideways might sound reasonable in theory, but results define reality. And sideways steps at a club like Rangers are rarely accepted for long. Supporters are watching the same patterns repeat themselves: slow starts turning into frantic finishes, mistakes in crucial areas, and an inability to control games away from home. Improvement cannot just be spoken about. It has to be visible, consistent, and measurable. Beyond the pitch, the problems run even deeper, and nowhere is that clearer than in the ongoing fallout from a disastrous summer recruitment drive. The situation surrounding Youssef Chimiti has become the symbol of everything that went wrong. Signed for a fee that raised eyebrows from the very beginning, the Portuguese forward arrived carrying expectations that were always going to be difficult to meet. Those expectations have not just gone unmet, they have collapsed under the weight of underwhelming performances and a complete lack of end product. One goal across 18 appearances tells its own story, and even that solitary strike failed to spark the turnaround many hoped for. There were brief moments where patience was preached, where instability behind the scenes was blamed for his struggles, but football is unforgiving, and Rangers cannot afford expensive projects that show no clear signs of progress. With the structure that sanctioned the deal now dismantled, the message to the player appears increasingly clear. His future is not in Glasgow, and the club are already preparing for his departure when the transfer window opens. This is not a straightforward situation, though. Moving on a player for a significant loss so soon after his arrival brings financial consequences and uncomfortable questions. Rangers are painfully aware of that, yet there is a growing acceptance that continuing down this road would only compound the mistake. Carrying a high wage and a depreciating asset through the remainder of the season could do more harm than taking the hit now. Interest from elsewhere has been cautious at best, with potential suitors hesitant about both salary demands and valuation, and that leaves Rangers in a difficult negotiating position. What makes this even harder to swallow is the context of Chimiti's career before arriving. His time in England failed to deliver goals, failed to deliver momentum, and yet Rangers chose not only to gamble, but to make him the most expensive signing in more than 2 decades. In hindsight, that decision looks extraordinary, especially for a club that must be ruthless and precise in the market. Every missed chance since has only magnified that initial choice, turning one transfer into a constant reminder of misjudgment. There was a fleeting sense of hope when he finally found the net under the current manager, a moment that suggested clarity and stability might unlock something more. That moment passed quickly and nothing followed it. Confidence drained, opportunities dried up, and patience among supporters evaporated. The spotlight has remained fixed, not just on the player, but on the recruitment model that brought him in and left the squad unbalanced in key areas. To their credit, the new ownership have not shied away from difficult decisions. Changes have already been made, hard conversations have been had, and there is a clear attempt to confront uncomfortable truths rather than ignore them. Yet action off the pitch must eventually translate into authority on it, because Rangers cannot rebuild credibility while performances continue to flatter to deceive. Every match now feels like a referendum on direction, belief, and leadership, and with pressure mounting from all sides, the margin for error continues to shrink with each passing week. As the dust settles on another bruising weekend, the bigger concern for Rangers supporters is not a single defeat, but the growing sense that the same problems keep resurfacing in different shapes. There is a feeling that matches are being lost in moments rather than phases, and those moments are almost always self-inflicted. When a team lacks control in decisive situations, confidence drains quickly, and once belief starts to fracture, everything becomes harder. The players sense it, the crowd senses it, and opponents certainly sense it too. What stands out is how fragile Rangers appear when the game turns against them. The moment Hearts scored, there was no calm reset, no visible leadership dragging standards back up. Instead, panic crept in, passes became rushed, and decisions lost clarity. This is not just about tactics or formations, it is about mentality. Strong sides absorb setbacks and reassert themselves, but Rangers too often look like a team waiting for the next mistake to arrive. That is why conceding a second goal so quickly felt inevitable rather than unfortunate. There is also a worrying lack of authority in midfield areas, particularly when protecting the back line. Too many times the ball is lost in dangerous zones, inviting pressure that the defense is not equipped to handle repeatedly. Opponents have learned that patience pays against Rangers because chances will come without the need to dominate possession. Sit compact, wait for the error, exploit the space, and suddenly the game tilts. This pattern has been evident for weeks, yet solutions remain elusive. Supporters are growing tired of hearing that performances are close to clicking. Football at this level does not reward potential, it rewards execution. When you are chasing games as often as Rangers are, belief becomes a fragile thing. Every missed pass carries more weight, every defensive lapse feels magnified, and the atmosphere tightens. Players who might otherwise express themselves become hesitant, and hesitation is fatal in matches decided by fine margins. The question of squad limitations is now being asked more openly, not out of impatience, but out of realism. There is only so much adjustment that can be made without reinforcement, and only so many flaws that coaching alone can mask. January looms large, not as a miracle cure, but as a necessary checkpoint. Decisions taken in the coming weeks will shape not just this season, but the direction of the rebuild that is clearly underway. That rebuild cannot ignore the lessons of recent recruitment failures. Rangers simply cannot afford to repeat mistakes where fees, wages, and expectations spiral beyond what the player can realistically deliver. Every misstep in the market has a ripple effect, reducing flexibility and increasing pressure elsewhere in the squad. When resources are tied up in signings that do not contribute, the entire structure suffers, from depth options to tactical variety. There is also a human cost to this situation. Players like Chimiti did not arrive intending to fail, and confidence can evaporate quickly in a hostile spotlight. Yet this is elite football, and Rangers is not a club where sentiment can override performance for long. The environment demands resilience and immediate impact, especially when the financial outlay is so significant. Once the trust between player and support fractures, recovery becomes extremely difficult. The looming departures and potential reshuffles bring uncertainty, but they also bring opportunity. Fresh faces, clearer roles, and a more coherent recruitment strategy could restore balance to a squad that currently feels mismatched. However, any incoming players must be ready for the intensity of expectation that comes with wearing the shirt. There is little patience left for adaptation periods measured in months rather than matches. Leadership on the pitch remains another unresolved issue in moments of adversity. Rangers need voices that cut through the noise, players who demand the ball and set the tone. Too often, heads drop collectively and responsibility becomes blurred. That absence of visible authority fuels frustration among supporters who expect standards to be enforced regardless of circumstance. The relationship between the team and the fan base is also at a delicate point. Rangers supporters are loyal to the core, but loyalty does not mean blind acceptance. They want honesty, accountability, and evidence that lessons are being learned. When messaging from the club feels disconnected from what is happening on the pitch, it widens the gap and deepens mistrust. Every upcoming fixture now carries added weight, not just for the league table, but for belief. One convincing performance could shift the narrative, but another flat display will only intensify scrutiny. Rangers are no longer afforded the benefit of the doubt because too many opportunities to reset have passed without meaningful change. What happens next will define how this period is remembered, whether the club confronts its shortcomings with clarity and purpose, or continues to drift through matches searching for answers that never quite arrive. The margin between progress and stagnation is thin, and Rangers are walking that line every single week, knowing that patience is wearing thin and expectation never fades at a club of this size. There is also an underlying tension around identity because it is still unclear what this Rangers side is meant to look like when everything is working. At times they want to dominate the ball, at others they look more comfortable reacting, and that uncertainty seeps into performances. Players hesitate between options, unsure whether to recycle possession or force the moment, and that split second of doubt is often all an opponent needs. Until there is a clearer sense of style and purpose, matches will continue to feel disjointed, especially in hostile environments where conviction matters most. Away from home, these flaws are amplified. Confidence drains faster, communication breaks down more easily, and the margin for error shrinks. Rangers have struggled to impose themselves when the crowd is against them, and that has become a psychological hurdle as much as a tactical one. Teams sense vulnerability and grow bolder, while Rangers retreat into themselves, trying to manage games rather than control them. That mindset rarely ends well, particularly for a club built on authority and expectation. All of this feeds into a growing feeling that time is being wasted rather than invested. Every week, without visible improvement, feels like another step lost, another opportunity slipping by. Supporters are not demanding miracles, but they do want to see a clear trajectory, signs that hard lessons are being absorbed and applied. Right now, Rangers sit in an uncomfortable space between rebuilding and competing, and until that balance is resolved, the pressure will only continue to rise. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. Whispers around Ibrox are growing louder, and the name doing the rounds is one that few would have expected to hear in a Rangers context. João Felix, once hailed as one of Europe's brightest attacking talents, is being linked with a shock move to Glasgow, with sources suggesting the Portuguese forward has been intrigued by the club's continental ambitions. Nothing is signed, nothing is sealed, but the chat in the corridors of the game is that the idea has taken root. Those close to the situation say Felix has been weighing more than wages or short-term comfort. The pitch, as it's understood, centers on a European pathway that promises visibility, responsibility, and a chance to be the main man again. Rangers' recent habit of making noise beyond Scotland, coupled with a clear plan to rebuild around technical attacking fit bar, is believed to have caught the player's eye. For a footballer seeking rhythm and relevance, the lure of being trusted rather than rotated could be powerful. There is also talk that the Ibrox atmosphere has been sold as a factor. The roar of the stands, the expectation to take the ball in tight spaces, and the demand to make things happen every week might suit a player who thrives on confidence and connection with the crowd. Insiders hint that Felix views Scotland not as a step down, but as a stage where he can remind Europe what he's about, free from the constant churn of bigger leagues. From the Rangers side, the speculation fits a broader narrative. The club are said to be exploring statement signings that shift perception, players who bring pedigree and imagination. A deal of this scale would not be straightforward, and there are plenty of hurdles still to clear, but the very fact it's being discussed tells its own story. Whether this particular rumor gathers pace or fades away, it reflects a belief that Rangers see themselves as more than domestic contenders. If João Felix truly is listening, it suggests the European project being spoken about in Glasgow is starting to sound convincing beyond these shores. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned